Hey everyone. So I figured it's about time that we look at the contents of the Postfach again. I got quite a lot of messages with some lovely postcards. And this beautiful package just arrived this week with this wonderful wax seal here. And I know you're supposed to break a seal when you open it, but I just couldn't do it. I peeled it off because it looks so nice. These are both with maps of Canada. In here there are some maps of the Rocky Mountains, which Hannah kindly sent to me. And then here, together with this beautiful postcard, there's a message in there. There were some maps of British Columbia and of a place I'd never heard of, which is the one I'd love to have a look at today. And that's Yellowknife. So there's a little visitor's guide here. Yellowknife. I figured, okay, that sounds interesting. It's in the Northwest Territories. And I realized I don't really know a lot about the Canadian North. So rather than going through all the different maps in one, I think we will put these aside for another time with all of the cute pairs, as well as the ones in here. And today we'll focus on the north. So luckily I also have this map that Isabel sent, I think last year, when we had a look at Quebec. Today we are picking the northern part of the map. Let's see if we can fit it on here. So, just about on my tiny desk. And someone's requested that instead of my little wooden stick, I use a pencil more often because it's a bit softer. So let's try that today. So we're in North America here, all the way north. And here we have 60 degrees latitude, which is our dividing line basically between the provinces in the south, like British Columbia or Alberta, and the 3 territories of the north, which are Yukon, sometimes also used with an article, the Yukon, The Northwest Territories, or Territoire du Nord-Ouest, and the youngest of the territories, Nunavut. They cover a massive area of land with very few people living there. The smallest of the regions is the Yukon, bordering on Alaska here in the west, and the capital's right here, all the way in the south, Whitehorse. The capital has about 28,000 people living there, and the entire territory, roughly a population of 44,000 on 480,000 square kilometers. The Northwest Territories are quite a bit larger. They cover 1,300,000 square kilometers. And you can see here they extend all the way north to the Arctic and the islands in the Arctic Ocean. There's the Great Bear Lake here. And the Great Slave Lake. Which is where we find Yellowknife, the capital. Yellowknife's a bit smaller than Whitehorse. It has about 20,000 inhabitants. And the entire territory, roughly the same as Yukon, but 45,000. And then on the easternmost part here we have Nunavut, which became its own territory in 1999. Again, the population's pretty much the same size, a bit fewer than in the other two territories, but 40,000 people. And the area is even larger. It extends here into the Arctic again, with all of these islands here, and then all the way to Baffin Island, which is where we find the capital, Iqaluit. Originally, most of the north was part of the Northwest Territories, or as it was initially called, Northwestern Territories, or actually not just the north, most of Canada really. And Northwestern means relative to Rupert's Land, which was, well, further south and further east. chronologically. There has been some talk about changing the name of the Northwest Territories because it is a bit dry and descriptive. One suggestion has been to change it to a name from one of the native languages, so like Nunavut, for example, which means our land in one of the Inuktitut languages. Inuktitut languages are also spoken in the Northwest Territories further north. In the south you find Athabaskan languages, or Dene languages as they're also called. And the potential name that would mean the same as our land would be Denende. So that's sometimes used. All of these regions are multilingual. Yukon officially recognizes English and French, but it also protects the smaller local languages. In Nunavut, of course, you have not just English and French, but also the two Inuktitut languages officially as languages of the territory. And the Northwest Territories have 11 official languages. However, when you have that many languages, it becomes a bit difficult to use them all in the same capacity. In the EU, for example, where the language of every state is an official language, you have a massive industry of translators and interpreters. And for a territory that isn't that densely populated, I think that would be quite expensive. So laws are only binding when they are in French and English, but they are translated when there's a demand for them or it makes sense to translate them in a specific situation. And that might not sound ideal. I'm guessing it's a practical solution. And just having the languages recognized as official languages already is a great step in protecting them. And after all, these territories have been populated for a very long time. Nunavut, for example, has had people living here 4,500 years ago. The ancestors of the modern Inuit moved in probably a bit less than 1,000 years ago. And both Nunavut and the Northwest Territories today have a majority of an indigenous population. When it comes to the languages, it's quite interesting though. In the Northwest Territories, you find lists of how many languages are spoken, and 78% say they mostly use English, followed by 4% Dogrips, one of the Dene languages, followed by French, and then some of the indigenous languages of Canada, except for number 6, where you find Tagalog, which is from the Philippines. So you clearly have a Filipino community here in the very north of Canada. And before we move on to the other maps, just one brief observation. When you look here, the further south you get, the more roads you have, and the more closely all the different places are connected to one another. Whereas in the north, birds are few. And it's almost like they disappear a bit into the landscape. And instead you have rivers and lakes. And a lot of nature. In fact, for a long time, Yellowknife wasn't connected to the highway network of Canada. You had to use the Mackenzie River. You could go by ferry in summer and drive on the ice in winter. But of course in fall and spring that's a bit of an issue when the ferries can't break through the ice, but it's also too thin to hold a vehicle. So, but luckily it's been solved and now there is a road. So let's put this one aside. So my idea of the north is that it's pretty cold. And you can see here with these cute little illustrations, you have, it almost looks like a snow fort, but it's the Wildcat Cafe. Oh no, sorry, it is a snow castle. I mixed up the numbers. It is a snow castle, not just a fort. And you have dogs here pulling a sled. There's people going skiing in Yellowknife Bay. And look at these two. They are really warmly wrapped up with beak hoods to keep them warm. It does get quite warm though in summer. Temperatures can go up to over 30 degrees Celsius, which is like 90 degrees Fahrenheit. But the cold's no joke. I can go down to minus 40, which is roughly the same in Celsius and Fahrenheit. You have some ice skating here on the lake. They do make it look very cozy. And I think this visitor's guide here is really lovingly made. So there's a welcome to the incredibly cool city, the capital of the Northwest Territories and one of the most vibrant, diverse communities in Canada. The settlement goes back to the 30s because they found some gold there, which led to the development of some gold mines. And those aren't active anymore, but now they are. There are some diamond mines, which are important to the economy. Again, here it says there's about 20,000 people living here, and the three groups that you have officially classified in Canada of North and Indigenous peoples are Inuit, Métis, and then the dinner would fall generally on the First Nations. So getting here, this seems like a bit of a warning. It's remote but doable. You can take the Mackenzie Highway from Alberta or British Columbia. So here from Edmonton, for example, and you can go north to Hay River, Fort Providence, and then all the way around to Yellowknife. And that would be approximately 1,500 kilometers, so about 20 hours of driving. And the road is paved most of the time. You should also try and minimize any time driving after nightfall, because bison frequently wander onto the road and they're hard to see. When you start seeing distinctive pink granite along the side of the road, you are getting close to Yellowknife. You can also go by plane. They do have an airport which is well connected with direct flights from Edmonton, Calgary, Ottawa, Toronto, Vancouver, and Whitehorse. And then most of these suggestions are for the great outdoors. Hiking, bird watching, kayaking. You also have most information in both English and French. So, le tout dernier parc national du Canada est un lieu de beauté sauvage. Le lieu vivant entre la terre et la culture autochtone forge une expérience que vous n'oublierez pas de sitôt. You can see the northern lights from Yellowknife. And you have these beautiful winter images. There's also quite a lot of lakes, which I find kind of fascinating. There's a small map here. You can see on the side there's the Yellowknife Airport. On the side there's the Great Slave Lake with Back Bay separately listed here. And then you have Handle Lake, Joe Lake, Fox Lake, which offers a gorgeous Prospector Trail scenic viewpoint. There's Long Lake, where you have the Folk on the Rocks Music Festival in summer, which I guess is relatively well known, at least in the north. Then, there's Ford Lake, then with several enjoyable walking trails. There's Jackfish Lake right here in the middle. Neven Lake. This is a developmental area in the city, which kind of loops around here between Neven and Frame Lake, which is the next one. This one gives you probably the best tour of Yellowknife, including the Prince of Wales Museum or the City Hall. Then we have Red Lake, a tiny one here. Range Lake, which got its name because of the proximity to the old radio range of Yellowknife's airport. There's Pod Lake and Cum Lake, which used to be an industrial park on the outskirts. And Pod Lake here may be also interesting. This is a now defunct mine, so public access is restricted because the site is in active remediation. And here we have a view of what I'm guessing is downtown, and then up here would be Old Town, reaching out into the lake here. You have plenty of information here. We've had arts and culture, there's food and drink, where of course you get a lot of fish. Some heritage sites, some info on the different planes, the bush planes that are in use. Things to do depending on how much time you have. This here I think is also really well done, a calendar of events. And each month starts with a little kind of the vibe that you're getting from nature. Like here in April, the melt begins. This marks the beginning of the aurora off-season, so the snow starts to melt. In May, it's breakup time. The lake ice begins to crack, making it a rough commute for houseboaters. In June, it's welcome to summer, and July there's heat, sun, lakes, and music galore. It's all we've longed for all winter. But of course, that far north, the nights are getting darker in August. Late in the month, you can catch the northern lights already, but without a parka. And by October, there will be snow by the end of the month. The lakes begin to freeze in November. And in December, the northern light season opens up, and the ice is perfect for skating, skiing, ice fishing, and sledding. A lot of the north has conifers. And then only once you get to a certain point in the north where the growing season is too short, you reach a tree line where you don't have trees anymore. So that's the city. And I think that's the view that we've had on that one photo. The downtown map, and then here would be Old Town, again with a snow castle, and right across the lake it says this is the winter road to that town. Again, plenty of places to stay, plenty of commerce. There are the public buildings and schools, various points of interest. There's also some visitor information here for the Prince of Wales Northern Heritage Centre. You can see they include more of the official languages, but unfortunately I'm not sure which ones these are. So there's a tundra and a taiga gallery. And here in the mezzanine you have handcrafted baskets and non-traditional woven creations by Kathy Harper. And it's in English and in French. And this here I find quite funny. You find a lot of French throughout the names, or you've seen a lot of translations into French here. And then we have some different fish that we can find in the area. There's the Arctic grayling, the walleye or wally, I'm not sure how that's pronounced, the lake whitefish, the northern pike, the lake trout, and then this one here, a fish called a connu. It's not uncommon to reach up to 9 to 14 kilos, some even up to 22. The name is French for unknown, but they're well known in Great Slave Lake and Marion Lake, where they're often called coney. So it's shortened, a little nickname for the connu. Alright, and then plenty more info on food and drink and places to stay. If you crave some fast food or you want to eat in. Here, places that are free to see. There's an advert for the Folk on the Rocks festival. It was in the middle of July last year. Come and dance with us under the midnight sun. And there's a farmer's market with some carrots and red beets. I love red beets, so I think I'd be happy there. Winter and summer activities. A statue that's also replicated on some of the maps. A really excited man here who's done some fishing. I think he's happy. And so on. So I hope you enjoyed this little look at the Canadian North. I really wasn't that familiar with it, so that was quite interesting to read about. And I really like their lovely illustrations. They even tell you where to go for a good spot to see the aurora. But I hope for today all you're intending to see are some nice dreams. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next week. Good night.